It was December the 12th, 2021 in Abu Dhabi, and Lewis Hamilton was on the verge of making history, potentially cementing his place as the greatest F1 driver of all time. All he had to do was win this one final race to claim the World Championship. However, fate had a different plan. Throughout the season, Hamilton and Verstappen had been locked in a fierce battle, with crashes and on-track clashes becoming almost routine between the two. But this time, crashing was out of the question for Hamilton. It would hand Verstappen the victory, something he couldn't afford. So he needed to deliver a flawless performance, and he did exactly that. Hamilton was putting on a masterclass, pulling away from Verstappen and sitting comfortably with a 24-second lead with just 10 laps to go. Verstappen, it seemed, had accepted his defeat as the gap only widened. But then something totally unexpected happened. On lap 53, Nicholas Latifi crashed at turn 14 while battling Haas's Mick Schumacher. Latifi's dirty tyres after going off at turn 9 led to the crash, triggering a safety car. This was Red Bull's golden opportunity. They immediately pitted Verstappen for fresh tyres, while Mercedes, assuming the race would finish under the safety car, decided not to risk pitting Hamilton. As a result, Verstappen closed the gap, and in a stunning twist, race director Michael Massey called for a one-lap restart. With Hamilton stuck on worn tyres and Verstappen on fresh ones, the advantage shifted entirely. Verstappen overtook Hamilton with ease, denying him the chance to become the undisputed GOAT of Formula One. To this day, controversy surrounds that decision, as many believe Hamilton was robbed of his rightful victory. It was a moment that will forever be debated in F1 history. Now, to be considered F1's GOAT, a driver must not only dominate their era of Grand Prix racing, but also become the benchmark for everyone else. They need to be the one everyone is trying to beat, year after year. Over the years, plenty of world champions have gone up against the driver considered the yardstick of their time, and sometimes even come out on top for a season or two. A great example of this is the rivalry between Mika Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher in the late 90s and early 2000s. In 1999, their battle was cut short when Schumacher broke his leg at Silverstone, but the year before, Häkkinen had edged out the German in a winner-takes-all shootout in Japan. By 2000, Schumacher had reclaimed his crown after another intense battle, with Häkkinen admitting he just couldn't keep up with the psychological toll of competing against Schumacher, who was almost machine-like in his precision. That year marked the beginning of Schumacher's unstoppable run with Ferrari, which didn't just make him a Formula One world champion, but also elevated him to a global sports icon in the same league as Michael Jordan. To be seen as the potential GOAT of F1, a driver needs to have sustained success over several years, to the point where every pre-season, the big question is, can anyone stop that guy this year? Eventually, all challenges must be brushed aside, and the true greats exit the sport on their own terms, typically while still at the top of their game. Another important trait is public legacy. Look at athletes like Michael Jordan or Tom Brady, both widely regarded as the greatest in their respective sports, basketball and football. Even if someone isn't a fan of those sports, they still know who Jordan or Brady are. Their impact is so massive that they become household names. In F1, having a great legacy within the sport is one thing, but public recognition matters too. Take Lewis Hamilton as an example. At various points in his career, he's transcended Formula One, becoming even bigger than the championship itself. He's used his platform to speak out against racism, inequality, and lack of diversity, which has further boosted his public image. Just because he didn't start his career doing this doesn't mean his activism now is any less important. Ask someone on the street to name an F1 driver, and more often than not, the answer will be Lewis Hamilton. Some might say names like Jackie Stewart or Ayrton Senna, but Hamilton's reach goes beyond the F1 bubble, and even with Max Verstappen breaking his records, Hamilton remains the face of Formula One to the general public. Now, the final piece of the GOAT puzzle is whether the driver left F1 in a better place than they found it. Many drivers are content to win their races and championships, avoid controversy, and then fade into the background, maybe reappearing as a commentator. But the true greats push the sport forward, sometimes dragging it kicking and screaming into new uncharted territory. Jackie Stewart, for example, is now seen as F1's elder statesman, and his efforts in the 60s and 70s fundamentally changed the sport. Back then, Formula One was incredibly dangerous. A driver competing for 5 years had a 20% chance of being killed. Stewart, after a terrifying accident at Spa in 1966 where he was trapped in his wrecked fuel-soaked BRM, decided enough was enough. Alongside other drivers like Graham Hill, he campaigned tirelessly to make the sport safer. His mission intensified after the deaths of close friends Jim Clark and Jochen Rindt, and while he faced criticism from some in the media, he never wavered. Stewart even led boycotts of races where safety standards weren't up to par. The safety measures we see today, like the halo that saved Hamilton's life in the 2021 Italian Grand Prix, are a direct result of Stewart's fight for a safer sport. In a tragic twist, Stewart's expected 100th and final Grand Prix was marred by the death of his Tyrrell teammate, Francois Sever, at Watkins Glen. Sever had been groomed to take over as team leader, but after that heartbreaking loss, Stewart walked away from F1 immediately, leaving behind a legacy that would make the sport safer for future generations. Now, there's something magical about watching a driver master a wet weather race in Formula 1. It leaves you wondering, how is he even doing this? All of the drivers who stake their claim to being the greatest have at least one standout performance in the rain to back it up. Some even have several. Ayrton Senna, for example, made his mark with a legendary drive in the pouring rain at the 1984 Monaco Grand Prix, closing in on Alain Prost by seconds per lap in a humble Tolman, only for the race to be stopped early. A year later, Senna's first victory came at a soaked Estoril where he seemed to glide through the rain. Then there's his incredible opening lap at Donington Park in 1993, where he went from 5th to 1st in no time at all. Jackie Stewart has his own legendary wet weather win at the 1968 German Grand Prix. Despite racing with a broken wrist and a cast, he won by over 4 minutes on the treacherous Nürburgring, which he famously dubbed the Green Hell. Schumacher's iconic wet weather moment came at the 1996 Spanish Grand Prix when he won in torrential rain with a Ferrari that was hardly worth of the podium, let alone first place. And Hamilton, he's had more than one rain-soaked triumph, but his wins at the 2008 British Grand Prix and the 2020 Turkish Grand Prix stand out, especially the latter, which secured his 7th world title and is arguably his best ever drive in a Grand Prix. Great wet weather performances are a hallmark of the true F1 legends. But to be the best, a driver has to have that "I'm just better than you" mentality. It's that willingness to do whatever it takes to win, sometimes even pushing the boundaries of what's fair. But there's a right way to do it. Fernando Alonso, for example, is a master of the subtle dark arts. At the 2022 Monaco Grand Prix, he deliberately drove slower, letting the top 6 cars pull away while holding up the pack behind him, only to suddenly pick up the pace when it suited him, creating a gap and securing his position. Schumacher, on the other hand, wasn't shy about bending the rules either. Who can forget when he parked his Ferrari at Rascasse during 2006 qualifying, preventing Alonso from taking pole? Or when he collided with Damon Hill in the 1994 title decider after damaging his own car? Rather than step aside, Schumacher turned into Hill, forcing a crash and making Hill decide whether to avoid it or not. Of course, Schumacher wasn't always in the right. His attempt to take out Jacques Villeneuve in 1997 was a step too far, and he was rightly disqualified from that year's championship. But even that wasn't the worst offence in F1 history. That dishonour belongs to Senna for his infamous move at the 1990 Japanese Grand Prix, where he deliberately collided with Prost at full speed going into turn 1 as revenge. As Murray Walker put it, absolutely predictable. To be considered the GOAT, a driver needs to race the right way. They must be tough but fair, pushing the limits of what's acceptable without fully crossing the line. After all, racing at 200 miles per hour relies on a fundamental trust between drivers that the guy next to you isn't going to recklessly endanger both of your lives just to win a race. Why Lewis Hamilton could be the GOAT. Lewis Hamilton holds the record for the most podium finishes in Formula 1 history, a testament to his unparalleled consistency and dominance. His average race performance is outstanding, regularly placing him among the top 5 finishers in nearly every race. When it comes to direct competition, Hamilton's stats are off the charts, showcasing his supremacy on the track. According to a weighted analysis that takes various factors into account, especially those that allow comparisons across different eras of the sport, Hamilton stands out as the greatest. While he may not hold the record for the most world championships outright, he shares the honour of 7 titles with Michael Schumacher. Hamilton outshines everyone else in areas that make him a modern F1 legend. What truly sets Hamilton apart is his remarkable consistency. Across his 316 races, he's averaged a finishing position of 4.76, a level of performance that keeps him among the elite drivers race after race. His ability to stay at the top over such a long period makes him a formidable force in the sport, and it's why many argue he is the GOAT. Why Max Verstappen could be the GOAT. Max Verstappen made history as the youngest driver ever to start a Formula 1 Grand Prix, debuting at just 17 years and 166 days. He then cemented his name in the record books when, at the 2016 Spanish Grand Prix, he became the youngest ever Grand Prix winner, surpassing Sebastian Vettel's previous record. By 2023, Verstappen had become the dominant force on the grid and the highest paid driver in the sport. According to Racing News, Red Bull's willingness to pay a staggering $55 million for his services in 2023 alone underscores just how invaluable his talent is. Verstappen's performance on the track has elevated him to the top ranks of F1's elite. However, despite his many achievements, Verstappen doesn't hold the title of the youngest world champion. That honour still belongs to Sebastian Vettel, who claimed it at just 23 years old in 2010. In his rivalry with Lewis Hamilton, Verstappen's abilities shine, but Hamilton has often had the upper hand. When compared head-to-head, Hamilton has consistently outperformed Verstappen, finishing an average of 2.73 places ahead. This fierce competition further solidifies Hamilton's legendary status, while showcasing Verstappen's rapid rise and potential to one day be considered the GOAT. Why Michael Schumacher could be the GOAT. Michael Schumacher's head-to-head performance ranks just behind Lewis Hamilton, but he remains one of the most consistently brilliant drivers in Formula 1 history. Fernando Alonso, a fellow F1 legend, once said that Schumacher never had a bad day and never underperformed, reinforcing his reputation for excellence on the track. One of Schumacher's most impressive feats is his unmatched 2002 season, where he became the only driver in F1 history to finish on the podium in every race. This consistency earned him the highest standardized points total in the sport's history, a remarkable achievement that highlights his dominance. When people debate the greatest driver of all time, Schumacher's name is always in the mix. However, when directly comparing Schumacher and Hamilton, the number tilts slightly in Hamilton's favour. While Schumacher's career average finish stands at 6.87, Hamilton consistently outperforms with a better average and a similar race count, having both competed in over 300 Grands Prix. Despite that, Schumacher's legacy remained monumental, as he helped define an era of the sport with his 7 world championships and numerous records. Why Ayrton Senna could be the GOAT. Ayrton Senna, with 41 wins and 65 pole positions across just 161 races, remains one of the most legendary figures in motorsport. Known for his raw talent and relentless ambition, Senna's ability to extract every ounce of performance from a car made him a standout in Formula 1. His commitment to pushing the boundaries of speed and precision, lap after lap, set a benchmark for future generations. Despite only winning 3 world championships, 1988, 1990 and 91, many argue his potential was far greater, as his tragic death at the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix cut short what could have been an even more illustrious career. Even today, nearly 30 years after his passing, Senna's legacy endures, with fans and drivers alike still marvelling at his brilliance on the track. His unique blend of natural speed and deep passion for the sport places him firmly in the conversation for the greatest of all time. There are other candidates for the GOAT debate if you take the different eras into account. Sebastian Vettel's career has been marked by incredible achievements, including winning 4 consecutive world championships with Red Bull Racing. However, his average finish throughout his career is only 7th place, and he boasts a 17% P1 winning percentage. Solid, but not quite enough to place him among the very best. Alain Prost, renowned for his technical knowledge and strategic approach, demonstrated outstanding consistency throughout his time in Formula 1. His famous rivalry with Ayrton Senna in the late 1980s and early 1990s remains one of the most iconic in motorsport history. Prost may have the highest head-to-head score of all time, but his average race ranking still falls short compared to the consistent performances delivered by Lewis Hamilton. Niki Lauda, another 3-time world champion, is widely regarded as one of the sport's greats. Lauda's incredible comeback after surviving a near-fatal accident in 1976 is legendary. Despite his significant achievements, achievement, Lauda, much like Prost, doesn't have an exceptional average race ranking, often finishing outside the top 10 for much of his career. While these drivers are revered for their individual achievements, their overall consistency in average race finishes leave them trailing behind Hamilton's record of dominance. There is a consistent trend in putting Fernando Alonso in these GOAT debates. Alonso holds the record for the longest career in Formula 1 with over 366 races to his name. His remarkable consistency and performance throughout his tenure make him one of the sport's all-time greats. When you consider the sheer number of races he's competed in, Alonso's ability to consistently rank among the best is truly impressive. In 2022, Alonso made headlines by signing with Aston Martin, and it's clear now that he's lived up to the hype. His performances this season have been nothing short of stellar, breathing new life into Aston Martin's F1 status. With Alonso's current form, he has a legitimate shot at securing a top 3 finish in the World Driver Championship, and his continued excellence means he could remain a key presence on the grid for seasons to come. So, after all discussions, who stands out as your number 1 GOAT in the Formula 1 world? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more heated discussions and insights.